Powered by Riverside FM.
Welcome to another edition of Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Continue to help the station grow. Welp, Minnesota Viking fans, the season has come to a close. And I can't say that it's any different than any great run that we have had in recent years. It ends with a thud. Los Angeles Rams, with all the distractions that they've had, come in very focused, very well-coached football team, defeating the Minnesota Vikings 27-9. And, you know, as disappointed as we are, UP Nation, Skull Nation and Minnesota Vikings Nation, man, I look at this with disappointment. I look at it with a lot of disappointment, but I also look at it as a blessing in disguise. And this is what I was worried about. It's why, you know, during the whole year when people got really excited about the whole Sam Darnold experiment, I said, man, we just got to let this thing play out. We just got to let this thing play out. And he almost got me. Sam Darnold almost got me because I said, you know, where he moved the needle for me is that we had to try to get something from him, for him. We had to try to get something for him. We couldn't just let him walk and not get anything for him. We had to franchise tag him and try to save him at least. But I was never on board with signing him to a multi-year deal or even having him be the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings team next year unless he went on just a magical run and took us to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl. Barring that, I was like, we're not bringing Sam Darnold back. And again, this whole thing is not about arm talent. You know, this whole thing is not about his potential. Sam Darnold, man, for all intents and purposes, gave us a fantastic year. He gave us a fantastic year. But let me tell you this also. Kirk Cousins gave us some fantastic years as well. 13-3 just a couple of years ago. But in these big moments, again, I say this all the time, there are levels to this. The glazed look in Sam Darnold's eyes last night showed me that he was overwhelmed. And you could see it in the first quarter. Like, I knew it was over in the first quarter. I said that there's no way he's going to be able to go out there and make plays because he doesn't have the mind for it. He doesn't have the intestinal fortitude to get the job done. Everybody gets so caught up in all the physical attributes of these quarterbacks, man. I say it all the time. Sometimes it's about the mind. It's the mind of a champion that can get through these type of games. It's a very rare breed. It's a very rare breed. It is why I'm so surprised that people that watch a lot of football saw the history of Sam Darnold, saw the play this year, little small sample size, and was ready to go with Sam Darnold on a multi-year deal. I am surprised at people that watch a lot of football that have that take. Because if you watch a lot of football, I did a podcast specifically about this. Go back and watch it if you haven't watched it. That we've seen this before from a lot of different quarterbacks, Case Keenum, etc., etc., etc. You can't go by small sample size. There are levels to this. And this is a blessing because we were ready to sign this guy up, man. We were ready to sign this guy up, and we would have been stuck. We would have been stuck with Sam Darnold and a $40 million at least franchise tag. And we would have been in the same boat that we would have been in with Kirk Cousins, limited resources, not being able to build this team. The blessing in disguise is that he played terrible his last two games. So all that good taste, all that good vibe that we had about Sam Darnold has dissipated. And more importantly, I hope that it's dissipated in the Minnesota Vikings front office so they won't make that mistake. I don't think you can franchise tag him now because you don't want to get stuck with that $41 million, $40 million, whatever it is. You don't want to be stuck with that price tag, man. That's on the real. Like, you don't want to be stuck with that. If you're the Minnesota Vikings, you can't take that chance. So you got to let him walk. And hopefully you'll get some sort of compensatory pick for it. And I don't know. I hear a lot of people talk about he's lost a lot of money over the last 2 games. I'm sure he's lost some ducats over the last couple of games. I don't know how much. I think there are a lot of desperate teams out there that's going to take a flyer on him. This is not a quarterback-rich draft. You know, you have some free agents out there. I don't know where he fits and all that. Do you want to bring an Aaron Rodgers in over a Sam Darnold to your franchise? Do you like a young Sam Darnold over a Kirk Cousins coming off an Achilles, man? I don't know. I don't know what the mark is going to be. I just know that he can't be with the Minnesota Vikings next year. If there's a silver lining in all of this, is that we don't have to make the big mistake, because I feel like we're about to. I feel like we're about to make the big mistake. We don't have to make the big mistake of signing Sam Darnold to a multi-year deal. Man, I see a lot of venom about KOC, social media, online, other podcasts, people talking about fire KOC. Man, you can miss me with that. You're going to fire a guy that was 13-3 a year ago, got us through a rough patch last year, won 7 games with the carousel of quarterbacks, and won 14-3 this year. And I just recently did a podcast where if he lost this game, the question that I asked is, does it hurt his legacy in terms of now the narrative's going to be that he can't win a playoff game? He can't win those type of games. And he has shown us he's 0-2. So I'm not a KOC apologist. But, man, he's done some good work in 3 years here other than being able to win playoff games. And I will say this. I don't think you can judge KOC in that realm in terms of, can he win playoff games? Is he a big-time game coach? I just know I'm going to wait and evaluate that until he gets his quarterback. And we have JJ McCarthy. So I just know that he was stuck with Kirk Cousins, had a carousel of quarterbacks last year, had to have a stopgap quarterback this year, which he did a fantastic job with. I am waiting for KOC to get his guy before I put any type of labels on KOC in terms of not being able to win the big games, not being able to win playoff games. I think you have to do that. Now, where I am critical of KOC is his ability to be able to adjust, man. And I've been saying this for the last couple of years when it comes to KOC. His ability to be able to adjust from game to game is a little bit questionable. When we had the Pastronaut, and the Pastronaut was hot, he had all that running ability. He didn't seem to have the ability to create a short-term game plan for the Pastronaut. He tried to turn the Pastronaut into something that the Pastronaut was not. Now, keep in mind, the Pastronaut has successes elsewhere. That's why the Minnesota Vikings traded for him. If the Pastronaut wasn't balling out elsewhere, the Minnesota Vikings would have never traded for the Pastronaut. But they did, because he was balling out. And then he comes in, small sample size, had a great few games, and then he fell off a cliff. And it was really because I thought the Pastronaut, they didn't create a great game plan for him. Remember the game plan the Green Bay Packers made for Malik Willis? Just that quick. Just that quick. And so the narrative when it came to the Pastronaut was, well, you know, you can't change midstream your offense just for one player. The Green Bay Packers did. The Green Bay Packers did for Malik Willis. In the time that Jordan Love was out, the Green Bay Packers was a different football team. See, it all depends on what type of staff you got, and it all depends on what type of mind you got. You can't tell me that with the talent that the Pastronaut had, and I'm not saying he was a franchise guy by any stretch, but you saw what his ceiling could be, and we couldn't create anything for him. So when I look at KOC this year from game to game, the Lions gave everybody a blueprint on how to beat the Minnesota Vikings, and I felt like KOC just didn't adjust. And what I mean by adjust, again, I sound like a broken record, but there was no quick game. There's no quick game for Sam Darnold. And you know that he is deficient when he's back there patting the football and you take away his first couple of reads. He gets skittish. And KOC has to know that. Now, there are some elements that we may not understand. Maybe the offensive line, when you talk about the quick game, you're talking about a lot of screens, tunnel screens, bubble screens. Maybe the offensive line is so terrible that they can't do that. And maybe Sam Darnold is so bad. I saw a few errant passes last night from Sam Darnold, even on screen. So maybe KOC knows something that we don't know. That was the first thing I thought about last night when I saw them try to incorporate at times some bubble screens, throwing the ball out on the perimeter, trying to break some runs. Like Sam Darnold just couldn't get the ball there accurately. So I thought to myself, maybe KOC knows a little bit more than we know. But in terms of firing KOC, man, you can miss me with that. But KOC, if we are going to win a Super Bowl, it is going to be under KOC. We just have to give him the tools to do it. And again, this blessing in disguise from the Minnesota Vikings and Sam Darnold last night was great because now it forces us to move on in the right direction with JJ McCarthy and that rookie contract and being able to build this team. If the Minnesota Vikings do not address the offensive line, I feel like we've been talking about the offensive line for years. We've been using, plug type offensive linemen to fix things. Dalton, Reisner, all these guys. If the Minnesota Vikings don't put a premium on their offensive line this offseason and their offensive line and their defensive line this offseason, I don't know what to say about the Minnesota Vikings. Like, you have the salary cap now to be able to address some of those issues. Address some of those issues. Get the offensive line fixed. Get it fixed. If we come in with the same narrative next year, well, our offensive line is not great, and we come back with, Quisenberry and Dalton Reisner and all these guys in the mix for possible starting spots. Man, come on. Come on. You got to get that done. Man, there's been a lot of narrative throughout the season. And it's funny when you look back and you do some reflection on the Minnesota Vikings season, how things just didn't play out. Remember when we were on TJ Hawkinson watch, where we thought, man, when we get TJ Hawkinson back, it's going to change everything about the Minnesota Vikings offense. Remember we were talking that trash? Oh, when TJ Hawkinson come back. That was the narrative. Everybody had it on their part when TJ Hawkinson come back. Did TJ Hawkinson actually help take our offense to the next level? See, this is the thing about these narratives, man. People hang their hats on one thing, and then they just go with it. I'm not saying that TJ Hawkinson is trash. TJ Hawkinson is a great tight end. But my question is, this is not about his greatness or how well he can play. Did he take our offense to the next level? No. No, we scored 9 points last night. We didn't have TJ Hawkinson the first time we played the Rams, so the talk was about, okay, we didn't have TJ Hawkinson there. No. 9 points last night. Didn't show up against the Detroit Lions. Stop with all these false narratives. Remember that? TJ Hawkinson is going to take us to the next level. Remember the Aaron Jones signing? Aaron Jones had a good year for us. Not a great year, but a good year. Now we got the running game. Did Aaron Jones help take our offense to the next level? No. Was he an upgrade from Madison? Absolutely. I'm just trying to keep it real here, UP Nation. Just trying to keep it real here. All of these narratives, all of these, the Minnesota Vikings offseason is really, really important. Really, really important. Such a disappointing, embarrassing night last night. Like, again, the Minnesota Vikings just couldn't lose the game. But they had to be thoroughly dominated, as usual, in the playoffs. They had to end this thing with a thud. And I'm just tired of that. My whole focus, whether JJ McCarthy is the guy, we don't know. But I know the guy has won championships, so he's been there, done that. And I think he's wired a little bit differently. But my sole focus being a Minnesota Vikings fan is this. I want a quarterback that can play in these games. I want a quarterback that won't turtle up and go into his shell in big moments. I want a quarterback that can put on the shades and perform when the lights are bright. There are levels to this. Don't you guys want that, UP Nation? Minnesota Vikings Nation, don't you want that? Did you see Matthew Stafford last night? Remember when there were rumors about the Vikings possibly trading Sam Darnold for Matthew Stafford? And the majority of the Minnesota Viking fans wanted no part of that. Would you have taken that last night? See, Matthew Stafford is old and decrepit. But you can see the DNA of a Super Bowl winning quarterback last night. That moment was not too big for Matthew Stafford. And you're talking about Matthew Stafford, who's old and broken up. He looked so much better than Sam Darnold last night. So that's why when people were talking about, I don't want Matthew Stafford, we're not trading Sam Darnold for Matthew Stafford, it just perplexed me. And it's coming from people that watch football, man. I'm just surprised. For people that watch a lot of football, when some of these stories start to come up, their takes on it is incredible. Like, people hadn't watched Matthew Stafford for years. Deal. You're going to take a guy. If the Vikings had a chance to trade for Matthew Stafford, you're going to take a guy whose resume in Sam Darnold has been nothing but mediocre to bad. And then you have a guy with winning championship DNA that's an option. And you're just going to dismiss that option. It wasn't like we were looking at signing Matthew Stafford for a multi-year deal. Matthew Stafford is on the verge of retiring. So for the rest of the year, you wouldn't take a Matthew Stafford over Sam Darnold if you had the opportunity? Did you see the two of them last night? Did you see? Remember that rumor that was floating out there and everybody was like, nah, I'm not Matthew Stafford. Would you have taken Matthew Stafford on our team last night? See, sometimes you just got to have some dogs, man. And Sam Darnold, all the physical attributes, big strap and young, 27, big arm, quarterback. He's just not an alpha. He's just not that dog. As soon as the Minnesota Vikings lifted him, doused him with water in the locker room, lifted him over their shoulders, everything went downhill from there. The biggest 2 games of his career, money on the line, contract on the line, he failed. I don't want any part of that. There was a lot of variables about why the Minnesota Vikings lost that game last night. So this is not all on Sam Darnold, but a huge part of it is. Huge part of it is, man. So, again, I want that quarterback, man, that can take us to the next level. Barring that, I don't want to I'm not entertaining any sort of big contract for anybody until they can show me that in these big moments that they could come through. B-Flow's defense didn't come out the right way. I thought they settled in. They tried to keep it close, but Matthew Stafford was dealing out there, man. You're not going to fool or intimidate Matthew Stafford. He was out there balling. You're just not going to do that. The Minnesota Vikings, during the offseason, need to address this defense as well. Interior defensive line, cornerback. They need to address that as well. The Minnesota Vikings, man, there is definitely, the future is bright for them. And, again, I was afraid that they were going to bring this guy back and Sam Darnold to some sort of multi-year deal. And I just didn't want to get stuck with that. So if there's any silver lining in all of this, is that Sam Darnold showed his true colors last night. And it opens up a lot of good things for the Minnesota Vikings. Disappointing loss, 27-9, UP Nation. I know we wanted bigger and better things for the Minnesota Vikings. I thought that we were going to be playing in Philly next week, but that was not the case. Fantastic season, surpassed my expectations for the season. Enjoyed every minute of it, except for these last two games. Thought we could have at least won one playoff game. I'm confident KOC is going to get it together. But we are moving on to the JJ McCarthy. We better be moving on to the JJ McCarthy era. I am looking forward to that. Lots of content coming up, man. We're going to have a few guests on this week that, you know, are people that know about the Vikings, that have a lot of knowledge about the Vikings. So we're going to get some people on that's going to talk some Minnesota Vikings football. What's next? What's next for the Minnesota Vikings? What road should they take? You know, what should they add? Who should they possibly bring in? Going to have a lot of conversation about that. Disappointing loss, man. I'm just disappointed. 27-9 thud for the Minnesota Vikings. This has been Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We will make sure to see you when we see you. Latrey, take us home, man.
I don't know who I am. Can I say I'm a man? Am I losing my mind? Am I wasting my time? Do I know who I am?